Good morning, everybody. Bonjour à tout le monde. Je suis très contente d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui. Thanks for joining us today for what is going to be a really exciting charging infrastructure announcement for the City of Toronto. And I'm going to give a special shout out and thank you to Plug and Drive for hosting us in this space. This isn't the first time that we've had a chance to be at announcements with Plug and Drive and to really see their leadership on electric vehicles and getting people to be more aware of electric vehicles here in the province especially. But it's also a chance to talk about some of the work that we're doing together, the federal government, along with the city and with organizations. I'm Julie Dabrusin. I am the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, Jonathan Wilkinson, and also the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Minister Guilbeault. And today, I'm going to be your MC. So I have just introduced to you Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, the Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson. I'm also joined by Julie Dzerowicz, Member of Parliament for Davenport, the Deputy Mayor for the City of Toronto, Jennifer McKelvie, and Cara Clairman, President and CEO of Plug and Drive. So before I get started and go any further, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are gathered here on the traditional lands of many Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and Chippewa people, most recently with a treaty with Mississaugas of the Credit, and that we continue to be home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people with whom we share these lands. So we thank them for sharing these lands with us. So today we're going to be talking about some next steps on charging infrastructure. Transportation is one of the biggest sources of pollution in our country, and around the world we're seeing that there's a shift in how people get around. And that is particularly important when we're looking at what Canada can do, and the government of Canada and our partners, to try and accelerate this shift. As I've mentioned, I've been able to share the space with Plug and Drive a few times when we've talked about the work that we've done on regulatory arrangements for this vehicle standard, but also when we've been talking about deploying charging stations, for example, with the Atmospheric Fund here in the City of Toronto, as well as with Pollution Probe. We've been able to see charging infrastructure showing up in our public parking spots and in our buildings. We also have from the federal government a purchase incentive to help people to purchase these vehicles. And really exciting for an MP from Ontario is that we've been supporting our auto manufacturing sector. And so this is also creating really good paying jobs here in our province. When we're going to be making an announcement today about charging infrastructure, so I just really want to underline that point. This isn't the first step. We've been working with the city and working across the province on many different steps when it comes to charging infrastructure. Last year, we delivered $15 million to 32 organizations here in the GTA to install over 2,000 EV chargers across the Greater Toronto area. And we're not done yet. So today, we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. This is what the announcement is. So I am pleased to hand it over to the Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Julie, very much. And thanks to everybody for joining us here today. I would particularly acknowledge my two colleagues here who are both very strong advocates for climate action and for addressing issues around affordability, and they certainly are strong voices for their constituents in Ottawa. We are gathered at a time where it is increasingly clear that climate change is altering our world's natural environment in a myriad of harmful ways. The planet is burning up. The world's top scientists have been measuring it for decades, and people everywhere have seen it increasingly in the floods, the wildfires, and the storms across this country. This past summer, we experienced the most devastating wildfire season in Canada's history. It forced the evacuation of tens of thousands of people, destroyed homes and livelihoods, and blanketed our cities in smoke. Certainly, folks here in Toronto experienced this directly when people with medical conditions, pregnancies, the elderly, small children were directed to stay indoors for significant periods. But this past wildfire series was instructive. It showed us what the future looks like if we fail to tackle climate change. Beyond its increasingly significant impacts on our natural environment, climate change is also rapidly transforming the global economy and global finance in ways that are creating economic opportunities for those that are thoughtful, determined, and move strategically. La transformation énergétique mondiale, déjà bien engagée, est à la fois un impératif environnemental visant à protéger la planète pour les générations futures et une opportunité économique d'une ampleur comparable à la révolution industrielle. What Canada needs at this moment in our history is a thoughtful and ambitious strategy to reduce emissions in line with what science tells us we must, a strategy that will also ensure that we seize the economic opportunities that are enabled by a transition to a low-carbon future. A strategy that will create wealth and good jobs in every province and territory in this country. The focus on reducing emissions while having a thoughtful and strategic plan to grow the economy moving forward is something that your federal government has been working on since we were elected to office in 2015. One important part of such a plan is making it easier and more affordable for Canadians to adopt zero-emission vehicles, because how we move people and goods within our communities and across our country accounts for about 18% of our greenhouse gas emissions, and it is obviously critical to Canada's economic prosperity. We simply must get more zero-emission vehicles on the road, many of which will be manufactured here in Ontario, and make sure there are enough charging stations to get them powered up quickly and to get Canadians where they need to go. That is no small task. In fact, it is one that requires every level of government and the private sector to step up to the plate. For our part, the Government of Canada is and has been taking action. Firstly, the Government of Canada has attracted massive investments to build these electric vehicles and their batteries right here in Ontario. This includes the $7 billion Volkswagen battery manufacturing plant in St. Thomas, the multi-billion-dollar Stellantis plants in Windsor and Brampton, the over $2 billion in GM's Oshawa and Ingersoll plants, and the $1.4 billion investment for Toyota's plants in Cambridge and Woodstock, which will secure more than 8,000 jobs. And of course, Ford's Oakville Assembly Complex, which will alone secure 5,000 jobs. These investments will create tens of thousands of sustainable jobs for workers across the auto sector. Taken together, this represents a generational revitalization of the Ontario auto sector, which will help to decarbonize Canadian and global vehicle fleets with electric cars and buses. In addition to these strategic investments, our incoming Clean Economy Investment Tax Credits will unlock billions of dollars in new private capital for green manufacturing, energy, and other clean technology projects here in Ontario and right across Canada. In addition, we have taken regulatory action, including to ensure that enough of these vehicles are on the lots for Canadians to buy. The new electric vehicle availability standard announced by the federal government last December will help Canada keep pace with leading economies. This includes the United Kingdom, the European Union, several states in the United States, alongside the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, which projects that the majority of new cars in the United States will be electric by 2030. Thanks to the availability standard here in Canada, by 2035, all new passenger vehicles sold in Canada will be zero emission. At the same time, we know that owning an electric vehicle is much more affordable over its lifetime than a gas-powered car. From straightforward maintenance to recharging costs that are cents on the dollar compared to pumping gas, making the switch to electric is fundamentally an affordability upgrade, and the Government of Canada is acting to make that decision even easier. We are providing incentives of up to $5,000 for the purchase of new electric vehicles, helping to bring EV models to purchase parity. And of course, we are supporting the deployment of charging networks for electric vehicles in Canadian communities and along national and provincial highway systems in the places where public investment can make the greatest impact. We are doing this to ensure that Canadians can rest assured that no matter where they are, they can access vehicle charging as easily as we can access gasoline pumps today. By making infrastructure more available and more reliable, electric vehicle drivers can be confident that they will have access to charging wherever they go. As of last month, we've invested in deploying nearly 50,000 chargers across the country. I would say people should note that there are only about 12,000 gasoline stations across the country. This contributes to our target of deploying over 80,000 publicly funded chargers by 2029 in complement to hundreds of thousands of chargers funded by the private sector and other levels of government. And recently, we announced that the electric vehicle availability standard will include incentive credits for the auto sector to deploy EV chargers itself for the public over the next 3 years. À mesure que les réseaux de recharge du Canada se développent, le financement fédéral est de plus en plus complet par le travail des provinces, des territoires, des municipalités et des entreprises privées qui partagent notre ambition d'aider les Canadiens à accélérer leur transition vers un avenir plus durable et plus abordable. Which brings me to the announcement today. Today, I am very pleased to announce a federal investment of $5 million to enable the City of Toronto to deploy over 500 additional EV chargers right here in the city. Et encore, en français, j'ai le plaisir d'annoncer un investissement fédéral de 5 millions de dollars pour permettre à la Ville de Toronto de déployer plus de 500 bornes de recharge supplémentaires à travers la ville. We need to help EV drivers to get where they need to go with confidence and ease, and we need to do it fast. That is why all of these 500 chargers will be operational by the end of next year. These investments complement the significant investments that we have made to electrify not only our cars, but our public transit systems like the TTC. These are the kinds of investments we need to support Canadians in making the switch to EVs in a thoughtful, orderly, and quick way. We are going to continue to work with partners, good partners like the City of Toronto, to fight climate change and to build a prosperous low-carbon economy. We will continue investing in building a healthy and a prosperous future for our communities and our kids. And today is an important step forward in ensuring that we make the steps that are important to fight climate change, but also to ensure that we have a strong economy and an affordable way for Canadians to live. So thank you very much.
Now I would like to ask Julie Dzerowicz, Member of Parliament for Davenport, to come up.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It's really lovely for me to be here with my colleagues, Minister Wilkinson and Parliamentary Secretary Julie Dabrusin. And it's also great to be here with Deputy Mayor McKelvie, and it was lovely to meet Clairman, who is the presidency of Plug and Drive, who I learned might soon be my constituent, which I'm very excited about. For those that don't know, Davenport is riding just a little west of here. And if you talk to the average Davenport resident, they'll say to you, the way they love to get around is through transit, bike infrastructure, and for those who actually want to have a car, they want it to be zero emissions. And so the announcement today is absolutely exciting and critical for them. I also would say to you, it is, and the minister said this at the end, the announcement today is a way where we continue to show at the federal level that we continue to invest in the City of Toronto. I know that one of the last announcements I had attended with the city, the mayor had said that the federal government has delivered for the city, and I would say that this is one of the ways that we continue to deliver for the city with these types of investments. Since our federal government has come into power in 2015, the federal government has put into place an ambitious climate agenda aiming to bolster our economy and cultivate sustainable job opportunities. I'm very, very proud of the progress that we have made. Here in Toronto, that includes delivering electric buses, an expanded TTC, more green space, including urban national parks, and significant investments in home retrofits. We're also investing in the future of our vehicle fleet because in the race to net zero, we need to accelerate clean technologies and deploy them on roads here in Toronto and across the country. Today's unveiling of the electric vehicle infrastructure marks yet another stride towards realizing our objectives right here in Toronto. While unfortunately the leader of our opposition, Pierre Poilievre, attacks our mayors and consequently our cities, our federal government knows that working together with our cities is how you deliver real results for Toronto. I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you.
So now I will ask Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvie to come up. She's been an amazing partner to work with at the city, and so it's always wonderful to be able to share some space with her.
Well, good morning. It is such a pleasure to be here today to help mark today's exciting announcement alongside Minister Wilkinson, the City of Toronto's General Manager of Fleet Services, Abby Thomas, my dear friend, MP Julie Dzerowicz, doing great things in Davenport, as well as our wonderful Parliamentary Secretary, Julie Dabrusin, who's been a real champion for environmental action in the City of Toronto and a wonderful partner to us. And we're also here today with another great partner, Cara, Clairman, and Plug and Drive, this wonderful facility that is really facilitating our electric future. As Canada's largest city, Toronto has a responsibility to provide leadership in addressing the challenges created by climate change. In 2014, City Council adopted the Consolidated Green Fleet Plan, and in 2021, Toronto Council adopted the Transform TO Net Zero strategy to reduce community-wide greenhouse gas emissions in the City of Toronto to net zero by 2040. City vehicles are essential to the delivery of our public services. They also represent 40% of the City of Toronto's corporate emissions. The accelerated transition of the city's fleet to electric vehicles is a critical part of the city's plan to reach net zero emissions by 2040. And Toronto's strategy has one of the most ambitious net zero targets in North America. The federal government's ongoing investment in electric vehicle infrastructure is a welcome sign of the importance of moving to a more sustainable mode of transportation. And this is just one of several announcements that I've had the pleasure of partaking in with our great federal partners in this area. Today's investment will help reduce the impacts of more than 10,000 vehicles managed and operated by the city across the Fleet Services Division, the TTC, Toronto Police Service, Toronto Fire Service, and Toronto Paramedic Services. As the largest municipal fleet in Canada and one of the largest and most diverse fleets in North America, the City of Toronto's fleet plays an important leadership role in advancing technologies that aim to significantly reduce environmental impacts, improve vehicle efficiency, reliability, and safety, while reducing life cycle costs and associated impacts. The expanded corporate charging station network is expected to have 850 available charge ports by 2050 at more than 100 city locations. On behalf of the City of Toronto, I would like to thank Minister Wilkinson and Natural Resources Canada for their contribution of $5 million, which alongside the city's contribution of $5 million will support the installation of 526 chargers at municipal sites, including 40 fast chargers. Through this partnership with the federal government and advocacy from wonderful organizations like Plug and Drive, I'm confident that together we can achieve a greener transportation fleet in the City of Toronto. Thank you.
And finally, I get to call up our host today, Cara Clairman. It's been wonderful to be able to share space with you and talk about electric vehicles and all of the opportunities that they bring for our communities. So please come up.
Thank you so much, Parliamentary Secretary Dabrusin. It's been wonderful to have this ongoing partnership, and thank you for coming at other times to test drive cars and learn about cars. And of course, you've already heard, I'm Cara Clairman. I'm the President and CEO of Plug and Drive. I'm really pleased to welcome Natural Resources Canada, including, of course, the Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, and it was a pleasure to meet you, Julie Dzerowicz, Member of Parliament for Danforth, and for Davenport, and yeah, we just chatted about the fact that I live just outside of there right now, but we'll see. And of course, Jennifer McKelvie, who's been a great partner at the city. And so you're welcome. So for those of you who are not familiar with Plug and Drive, we are a nonprofit, and we're all about accelerating EV adoption through education. And here at Plug and Drive, we've been getting those butts in the seats for about 13 years now. And we're proud to say that we've encouraged thousands of Canadians to make the switch. In fact, we just finished running the EV test drive at the Canadian Auto Show here in Toronto. And I'm just so pleased to be able to tell you that we were able to facilitate more than 7,000 test drives over the 10-day auto show. It's a real record for us. And we're standing here at our new facility at Yonge and Bloor. It's the only facility of its kind in Canada where you can learn about and test drive a whole variety of makes and models of electric vehicles in a completely unbiased, no pressure to buy anything environment. So we really hope that Canadians will take advantage of these opportunities to get out there and test drive a car. We know that makes all the difference. We're so pleased to support Natural Resources Canada in its effort to get more chargers installed right here in Toronto, as well as, of course, across Canada. And we know the impacts of ZVIP. Those investments that are being made are quite easy to see for those of us who drive electric cars. As an EV driver for more than 12 years, I can tell you it's gotten so much easier to drive long distances in Canada, with both level 2 and level 3 chargers now being installed here in the city and all across the country. If you can believe it, we've hit more than 26,000 EV chargers across Canada as of the end of this year in 2023, and that's an addition of about 7,000 chargers per year. So it's really quite incredible pace that chargers are being installed. Of course, there are still plenty of Canadians that are yet to embrace EVs, believing they're either too expensive, that they don't go far enough, they don't work in Canadian winters, or are not suited to rural drivers. In other words, our work is far from done, but with the right educational efforts from groups like Plug and Drive, combined with initiatives like ZVIP, the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program that we're talking about today, and the recent announcements on ZEV standards, I believe we can help Canadians see the benefits so that they will make the switch. Those of us who've already done so, we know the benefits of reduced emissions along with the financial savings. And those savings are big. Electricity runs at about 1/4 to 1/6 the price of gas, depending on your province, and maintenance is much, much less too. So consumers are going to save money. I know that I have. But don't take my word for it. On the Plug and Drive website, there's a great calculator where you can enter in your gas car and compare it to any EV on the market, and it will show you your savings right there. Very easy to use. And then, of course, you can come visit us at Plug and Drive here in Toronto or at any of our events right across the country, and we'll help you figure out which EV fits your lifestyle. So we all know that the right EV policies and programs can help our country achieve its climate goals, and we know when it comes to climate change, there's no time to waste. That's why Plug and Drive is so happy to be working with industry, with other NGOs, and with all levels of government to support EV-friendly policy initiatives like the announcement being made today, focusing on the essential elements of education, infrastructure, and of course EV supply. We're very happy to be supporting the federal government in its effort to expand Canada's network of EV infrastructure and its other policy initiatives that help make sure EVs are available, affordable, and chargeable in every part of Canada. Thank you very much.
Kind of fun fact is that they can actually do the test driving of the vehicles at the auto show indoors because they don't have emissions. So it's kind of a cool thing to be able to see. So that's the end of the announcement for today. Thank you for everyone for joining, and we're going to open it up now to questions from the media. I'm going to welcome Carolyn, who will moderate the media portion for today.
Thanks, Julie. Since we're in a small room, I think I'll just do it here.
Yeah.
So, yes, now we will move to the moderated Q&A portion. All journalists are welcome to ask any questions of any of our wonderful speakers. If you could maybe just kind of come here so that they can see you and speak loud. And before you ask your question, just please identify your name and what outlet you're from and who your question is directed to if it's not to the whole group. So, I don't know.
I'll start. I'm Marco Ovid. I'm from the Toronto Star, and I just wanted to get a few clarifications on these new announced chargers. Are they going to be publicly accessible? And what does that mean? Does that mean on the street? Does that mean in a parking lot? Where are these things going to be? And my follow-up question is, you know, there's been this big change about the standard. Now everyone's moving to the kind of plug that it's going to be. And I understand that all plugs are adopting this Tesla plug that they've redubbed the North American standard. So are these new chargers all going to have to be on that new standard?
So this announcement is about charging stations for the City of Toronto corporate fleet. It will allow for the installation of 526 chargers, including 40 fast chargers. And that will be for a wide variety of our vehicles with Toronto Police Services, Toronto Fire, Toronto Paramedics, City of Toronto staff. So a wide array of different vehicles will be charged there. This is building upon the previous work that we've done in the City of Toronto alongside our federal partners. That has included installing public charging stations at our Toronto Green Pea parking lots. So we're building upon that today. That has also included, which used to be Toronto's, North America's largest green fleet with 60 buses. Edmonton now has 61. We are continuing to build upon all of that previous work. For personal charging stations, we have a number of things that are underway. That includes, in the City of Toronto, we have an EV working group that brings together all of our different partners to look about how to advance that electric future. We also have Better Homes TO, where residents can have a one-stop shop for home improvements and what they need to know about installing EV chargers. We have partnerships with this wonderful organization here today, Plug and Drive, and we're working alongside our partner, Toronto Hydro. So this is just, today's announcement is just one of many, many different things that we have going on in the City of Toronto regarding electric vehicle charging.
Do any other folks in the room have questions they would like to ask?
Could I ask one more then?
Yeah.
All right. My follow-up would be just that in terms of the logic of announcing that the city is going to have more of its vehicles electrified, how do you, is it important that people see that? Like, I guess I'm just trying to wonder a bit about the philosophy of it. Are you trying to lead by example? Are you trying to say, look, this massive fire truck can run on EVs, so you can probably run your kids to soccer in EVs?
Firstly, I'm happy you mentioned the fire truck. We have an electric fire truck coming soon to the City of Toronto. A little bit upset Brampton beat us to that as well. It's a bit competitive here, and really this is what it is. It's about spawning competition between municipalities, and Toronto, as the biggest city, has a role to be a leader in the environmental space and show what's possible. When we did purchase our green bus fleet, we purchased 20 buses from 3 different manufacturers to test how they would perform in our harsh Canadian winters. That was information that was made available to municipalities across the country. What we're doing today by greening our City of Toronto fleet is leading by example, showing other municipalities what can be done, but also importantly contributing to our City of Toronto Transform TO goals. And with those goals, again, you heard that our goal is to be net zero by 2040. We have a goal to have a 65% reduction over 1990 levels by 2030. And within our fleet itself, we are looking to electrify that fleet considerably as well, so that we have 20% of our City of Toronto fleet electric by 2025. And today's announcement is an important step towards reaching that. It's important that we show Toronto residents that we can win the fight against climate change, that we build that momentum, because that encourages them to get on board too. So I do encourage them to visit Better Homes TO to learn what they can do in their homes and how they can reduce their personal emissions in the City of Toronto.
Okay, great. I'll do one more call for questions, and if not, then we will move to the end of the announcement.
Do you want to speak generally about EVs?
If you
Being a
want
12-year owner?
something that,
Yeah.
if you want to ask me something, sure.
I'm Brian, I'm from City TV.
Sure.
Could you just speak about range anxiety?
Sure.
12 years ago?
Yeah,
compared to
there was
now?
a lot more range anxiety back then. But what you need to remember is that most Canadians, if you look at the stats, most of us drive 30 to 50 kilometers a day. If you look at Stats Canada collects these stats, about 80% of Canadians drive 50 kilometers or less a day. So range is not an issue for the most of us, and especially those of us who live in the major cities, we drive even less. And so for a lot of people, range is not an issue. And of course, the vehicles have, the range has grown over the last 10, 12 years. So even those who are driving longer distances, like I'm driving a Chevy Bolt and it gets 400 kilometers of range, and I am never going that far in a day. So even on a really cold day where people say, oh, I'm concerned about the cold weather, well, so if I lose 20% on a really cold day, what difference is that going to make for me? None. And so you have to think about what do you normally do in a day and whether the range is actually a concern for you or not. And for most of us, it's not.
And do you want to take a run at a couple of debunking a couple of other myths.
Sure, love it.
It would take me 5 seconds to find somebody who owns a Tesla that had a crazy repair bill.
Right, right.
And are disposing of used batteries,
Right.
is that dirtier than driving?
Okay, so
a regular
the
car?
answer is no. The batteries, by the way, are lasting incredibly well. We only have about 12 years of data, so that's the honest answer is we only know what we know about those 12 years. But so far, almost all the EVs from 2011 are still on the road today. Those batteries are lasting well, and in fact, the data is suggesting the batteries will outlast the car. So this idea that people will have to replace a battery in a car is going to be very rare indeed. It's not going to be something that most Canadians are ever going to have to do. Further, these batteries are extremely valuable. They are not going to be in any landfill site. They have valuable metals. There's actually a bunch of companies right here in Toronto that are leading the way in terms of first reuse. They can be refurbished and reused and then recycled. And in fact, about 80 to 90% of what goes into those batteries can be reused. And remember that these batteries are not that different than the batteries in our phones and the batteries in our computers, lithium-ion batteries. And so we have to get a handle on how to reuse and recycle all of it. I'm not saying cars aren't a big part of it, they are, but this is a bigger problem than just vehicle batteries. I hope I got it. All right, thank you so much for coming. Tell your friends to come to a test drive at right here in the city, Yonge and Bloor. Thank you so much to Ministry of Natural Resources and the City of Toronto for this amazing announcement today.